Hello, bonjour, namaste. Welcome to the Canada and India show, where we meet the people that make up the vibrant Canada-India relationship. Every week, we interview leaders in their fields to dive into who they are and what drives them. From the arts, to trade, to human rights, we will discover together how rich and diverse this relationship really is. Hi, I'm Annie Dubé, Canada's Consul General in Mumbai, India. And you are listening to the Canada in India show. Thank you for joining us. Deval Desai is the Vice President and Country Head for India at Magna International, a leading Canadian automotive supplier that established its presence in India way back in 2004. Today, they are the third largest automotive suppliers globally. They currently have a total of 3,500 employees in India. Join me as we discover more about their journey as well as the key to Canada-India business success. Welcome to the Canada in India show. Today we have Deval Desai. Let me know if I pronounce your name correctly or not. Okay, fantastic. You're Vice President and Country Head for India, Magna International. Magna International is a large Canadian company in the auto sector. And I'm very excited that we're going to touch on this industry. But first, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about Magna and our journey in India.
Well, you mentioned that Magna started in India in 2004. How has it been for a Canadian multinational to settle in and integrate the value chain here? Because in the auto sector, everything is connected. So how has it been?
So, again, as an automotive supplier, typically we follow where our customers go. We are the third largest automotive supplier globally. We have 348 plants around the world in 29 different countries. And India is one of those key markets when our customers, in the first decade of this century, when our customers started entering India, obviously we followed suit to support them for the India market. So that's when our journey began. We were initially an engineering center in Pune that was basically supporting our operations in Europe. It's the Star India engineering office. And then in 2004, we started to come in a big way. Today we have 6 JV plants in India and 6 Magna own subsidiary plants that manufacture anything from seats to complete metal forming solutions. We also make our only frame, a ladder frame outside of North America in Pune for Mahindra. So it's a great story. We also do latches, we do window regulators, we do mirrors, and interestingly, we also import certain components such as cameras.
Oh, so you said you do a frame for Mahindra. Which model?
It's the Scorpio.
I used to own a Scorpio. See? So Magna was part of my life.
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. How many employees do you have here?
We have about 3,500 employees currently.
3,500.
3,500 employees, which include about 650 engineering talent, which supports our products here for design, as well as our COEs, Center of Excellence in other markets.
What did you find was the most attractive when you came into the Indian market from the ecosystem perspective in the industry? I mean, yes, there's a large consumer market, but what made it worthwhile from a Magna perspective, beside the fact that your customer was what your main client was?
So I think it's really the future projection, right? If you look at the GDP per capita, and if you look at a market like China, how did China go from 8 million to 28 million in a matter of 15 years? And then the reason was the GDP per capita crossed that 5,000 mark. When we entered India, GDP per capita was about 1,000, and this is growing steadily. So primary reason was really to have the footprint at the right time so that we can capitalize when India crosses that magical GDP per capita and sales of automotive market takes off. Engineering obviously is one of the key reasons. Obviously, India has a great resource of human capital from that standpoint. And so that was the other reason to build on the Star Pune engineering facility and bring that competence and build that competence in India.
When we look at the economy right now, and this is November 2019, and there's been a bit of a slowing in the growth and forecast, it's unclear at this point how it's going to unfold. How is it affecting your operations?
So I would call it short-term pain, long-term gain. Obviously, many factors driving that. The emissions is probably the biggest one. When BS6 kicks in April, we expect that the market should turn around. Our plants are running, unfortunately, very low utilization. We are about 40% utilization, meaning we can still get a lot more manufacturing without putting additional capital. It has been a struggle for us, but what we are doing is taking this opportunity to do internal monozukuri, which is basically in the Japanese parlance to reflect on what we can control, which is the cost side of things. So we are looking from everything from plant floor usage, wastage, material flow, looking at the top suppliers that supply us and trying to find where we can save costs by eliminating waste so that when the market turns around, we'll be well positioned to take advantage of it.
What do you think will be needed for the market to turn around?
I think the biggest challenge we see is liquidity of funds. Obviously, that's one. BS6 should really help clear that hurdle when customers don't have that confusion between the old emission standard and the new emission standard. That's the second part. And infrastructure, I think, continues to be in the forefront. I mentioned this morning that the agricultural sector probably is the fourth key aspect. When agriculture, that area improves, that's where we see a lot of pull. Tier 1 cities have saturation of cars, but when you look at the Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, they don't. And if they have the ability to buy the vehicles, that really should also propel automotive sales.
You touch on emission standard, and for anyone following a bit what's happening in India, air quality is obviously something that people are concerned about. We've seen some unfortunate air quality index that were way beyond what is acceptable for humans. How do you see, is there anything that Magna is doing to make sure that you limit your footprint?
Absolutely. I think part of our internal reflection is really trying to use efficiency in the system, things like LED lighting, for example. We just in the process of launching a plant in Chennai, which I had the opportunity to go yesterday, and everything is LEDs. Solid state lighting uses 70% less power. So power consumption is less, and then it also gives you efficiency of the quality of light. So we are doing certain things to eliminate wastage, indirectly supporting the sustainability of our plants. Things such as solar are also in our consideration, but right now the payback period is slightly a little bit more than what we'd like. And so there's going to be a point where those will be also of great interest to us.
In a country of 1.3 billion people, obviously have opportunity to hire. There's a lot of labor, but how do you make sure that you identify the right skilled labor, or even just making sure that they have the right skill for you? Because we know that quality education is available, but not always for everybody and everywhere. So how do you make sure that you attract the right people for your plant?
That's a great question. One of the things we look at is the pool of available talent is there. We are very selective in how we hire, who we hire, and then we go magnetize them, as I call it. And part of that is to really put resources, put effort in training our talent. People ask me, like, what if you train them and they leave? And I'd say, what if you don't train them and they stay? So that's a process. It's something that's really been a key for our DNA, to get magnetized, to make sure that we got the right mindset, we got the entrepreneurial culture intact, and that we got, the right talent pool that's trained in the right way to really get that input and output from them.
Is there any line of business from Magna's perspective that you're not here in India yet, but you would like eventually to enter the market? And what would be your plans around that?
So that's another good question. Things like camera. I mentioned that we import rare cameras in India. Today, it's a very nascent market. 5 million vehicles produced in India today. About 5% of them have rare cameras. And it's one of those features where you have safety built into it. So I think when it becomes a feature that has high volume, that's when we start looking at, can we localize it, can we manufacture it? Right now, it doesn't have that scalability available to us, but rare cameras is one. Exteriors is one of our other groups that doesn't have footprint, which is basically making lightweight modules. It's a technology that's mainstream in North America and Europe, not here yet, but we anticipate that that's something that will come in the future.
Mm-hmm. Magna is one of these very large Canadian company that Canadians know, and we're proud of this company. Here, you're seen as a local company, basically, unless people start digging where Magna is from. I'm trying to think, when you look at the Indian companies, they have a certain percentage of their income that goes for social responsibility. Mm-hmm. Do you have that type of project?
We do. In fact, Magna founding principles have a certain percent that goes back to CR. So we do have, projects in India. I remember when we had the calamity in Nepal, all our divisions gave their one-day salary towards the cause. So we do those efforts just to kind of build on the CSR DNA that's in the Magna principles.
What would be your priority for India from a CSR perspective?
From a CSR perspective, I would say that, the Prime Minister's fund is something that we're looking at, because we know that those funds will be used in the right way. It keeps the politics away, and that's what we are really trying to do. We have processes in place where divisions can get together and kind of, work an initiative that can really help Magna contribute to a cause like that.
And from a personal perspective, you're in Pune every month, not necessarily the full month because you share your time between Pune, but also where you're located in Michigan. How challenging is it from a personal perspective?
I've kind of learned to work around the system. I have one leg in Pune and one leg in Michigan. I've found the best effective flight paths, like leaving on a Saturday night at 10 p.m. so that I can have dinner with my family and play with my dog and head to the airport. And I land here in Delhi at 2 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning, take a flight to Pune, and I'm at work at 9 a.m. And then, Friday morning, 3 a.m. flight going back. So I'm in Detroit Friday evening. So it makes for a very, very rough or tough 5 days, but it gives me an opportunity to go to our operations in Pune, in Chennai, and Sanand. And I think it's worked out well. I have to say that with the technologies such as WebEx and conference calls, those are very efficient, but there's one thing about having a face-to-face and something else about just having a telecon.
And this is one thing about India that you cannot do without is the personal relationship.
Absolutely.
And so coming to Mumbai or to India, in this case, Pune in your case, I think that it makes a big difference. It makes the full difference in terms of the quality of the operation you can run. What is the advice you would give to any Kenyan companies wanting to enter the Indian market?
I would say that, look, think about the long term. Don't have a snapshot in time. Be very patient. The processes are improving, but I would say built in your timeline, a factor of safety of what it takes. Really understand the market and build a clear strategy. You have to know the customers, the competitors, what are some of the pros and cons, and really do a good, thorough due diligence. And I would say choose the right partner.
Right, the right partner. That's probably the most challenging because you have a quantity of options that is unparalleled. From a Kenyan perspective, you show up here and it can be overwhelming. So we hope that we can assist also these companies. The Trade Commissioner Service is available, obviously, around the world, including in India. From your perspective, where do you see, and there's this promise where they want India to become a $5 trillion economy. What will it take for India to get there?
I would say one area that is a must is really benchmarking business processes in other countries. From looking at how airport transit is managed, signage in airports. I think that India has definitely a lot to learn. And I think half the battle is recognizing the need to learn. And I think the government is doing that. I think the next key step is really looking at developed markets and seeing how they execute a certain thing and replicating those processes for the India market, kind of similar to the latch story I mentioned today.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time for joining me. I really appreciate your input and learning more about Magna's operation in India.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us today for this insightful conversation with Deval Desai. We hope that you will join us next week for an episode with Ami Kim and her work at Dharavi, the largest slum in India.
We are thrilled that you shared this time with us today. We'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on our social media channels. On Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, we are at Canada in India. You can listen to all our episodes wherever you get your podcasts, so please do subscribe. Thank you. Merci. Dhanyavad.